So here we're going to go with one of the simplest swirls I could think of, and this is known as the Chopstick Swirl, although you can do it with a dowel if you need to. So into the mould we pop some base colour, and this is a kind of olivey green that I've put together. And then you're going to use a contrasting colour in order to kind of swirl through that base colour. And here I'm using a nice kind of bright neon yellow. Don't forget, neon yellows need some good dispersion in oils to stop any little bits of the mica just staying as little puffs of powder. So I've laid a layer of the base colour, then I've laid a couple of lines of the neon yellow, and then I'm covering that again with a layer of the base colour. You can do as many layers as you want in as many colours as you want, and that will give you a different kind of feeling to this swirl. But the idea of this series was to keep the colour schemes relatively simple, keep the layering relatively simple, and just give you an idea of how these techniques can be used in order to create certain swirls, but we're just trying to keep everything as simple and as clean as we can. So having done one layer of the green, then another layer of the yellow, we're going to finish off with a final layer of the green. We're going to scrape as much as we can out of here to get that final layer of green on the top. And then we're just going to pile the rest of the yellow up on top of that. Now the chopstick swirl is called the chopstick swirl because you essentially use a chopstick or a long thin dowel or even a pencil to perform a circular motion through the batter. Now I will do that just when we get to the point where I've piled all the nice yellow on the top. But essentially I'm going to show it in one direction. You could then turn the mould around and do it in the opposite direction. You could do it once in each direction, twice in each direction. It's really up to you. This gives you the basic idea of what that swirl is going to look like before you then start doing it twice or three times, or you add more colours in. So again, this is the most basic way of doing this swirl. And I would always recommend with this swirl doing it once in one direction and then going once in the other direction. So here we go, we're just popping on the last of that neon yellow onto the top of the mould. Get every little ounce of that into the mould we can. And then once that is all in there, we're going to give it a little bang down onto the table. That's going to release any air bubbles that may be caught. As you can see, the batter is getting a little bit thicker than a pourable consistency. So a nice thick trace now. The chopstick swirl is always useful if you have a pour that hasn't gone quite to plan, it's thickened up on you, you've used a new fragrance oil and it's just not done what it said it was going to do. You've over stick blended and it's a bit thicker than you would normally. This will still give you a really nice swirl without having to go to too much problem. So here's my dowel. What we're going to do is just do a very simple circular motion through the soap, coming up and down through the soap. And then we're going to stop and come back up. And as if by magic, here we are the next day, well, actually 3 days later, and we're going to cut this soap. Now, you can see on the top of this where I poured the melt and pour, it just wasn't a big enough bar of soap, and I just wanted something else on the top of it. And that seemed the nicest way of doing it. One thing to bear in mind, if you are going to use melt and pour alongside a cold process method, you need to cut these with a knife. If you try and use a wire with it, you are going to break your wire in seconds. So best off using a knife with this. And you'll also see here, I have got a handy dandy little set square. And I always find that handy when I am cutting by hand, because inevitably what I find I do is actually don't get a nice straight up and down bar. A few of these were iffy, and I will grant you that one very, very happily. But if I hadn't used my little line down the edge, they'd have been a lot worse. You can get those from jewellery suppliers. It's designed for making jewellery with, but I also find it just the right size for going up and down a soap, and it's stainless steel. So it works on all accounts there. So I'm going to mark my bar up into the 5 bars I want. And quite often I'll just use the width of the ruler as my width of a bar. The ruler is just under an inch, and therefore in this little mould I've got, which is about 5 inches wide, I will get 5 just under 1 inch bars, with a little bit of leeway once I've beveled and edged them. So I'll mark just on the side there where the vertical needs to come, and this is where my little ruler comes in so handy. I align it to the bottom. I know the bottom is going to be flat and straight, and therefore my verticals will be straight to the bottom edge, regardless of whether the soap is bowing outwards or whether the top is not flat. The bottom is likely always to be flat, and I'll always line and align to the bottom. I'll give it a quick turn around there so I can use the majority of the soap bar as a guide and just give it a little score. So let's get this cut. Now I know for some people this is the big thing, and hopefully this will be as nice a reveal as you'll get. But we're going to slice this one up into a nice bars. Totally didn't get this first one straight. There we go. Totally not straight. But look at that, that is your chopstick swirl. You can see essentially the way that the batter has been pulled around in a circular motion, and that goes through the bar, usually where we've kind of caught each bar with a circular motion, but you will get quite a nice distinctive bar out of that, particularly if you're doing nice thin layers, or if you do 4 nice big layers and you're doing a nice big swirl through it. You'll pull that soap around, but you're essentially going to kind of get this round, turbulent, almost like a hurricane style in the middle of the soap. And then if we just look at the last bar that's going to come up here, and let's get this last bar here, you'll see this last bar doesn't particularly have a big swirl to it. And that's because that was where we stopped. We drew the dowel up and then we pulled the dowel out. So there we go. That's the chopstick swirl. I hope that's helped some of you guys in choosing which swirl is best to use. So if this tutorial has been helpful for you, please give it a like in the description box below. Like and subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to be notified when new videos are uploaded. We'll see you again for our next swirl tutorial.